Okay, so I decided to do the cherries because I think they're a little more complicated than the other ones, so I thought that they would be a good one to do for a video. So the first thing that we're gonna do is, my reference is off to the side. So what I did was I took quite a bit of time mapping out where each of my individual values are gonna go, or my colors. That's gonna be really important because I drew this about 2 or 3 different times trying to get everything right. I did a lot of erasing, all that. So it's imperative that you get these shapes right and that you're not trying to fix the shapes when you're doing the colors. As we've learned before, you have to get it mapped out really well to have an accurate drawing. So what I did and what we kind of talked about on Monday is you kind of got to go through your pencils that you have and take note and kind of play around with them and see all the different colors that you have, and then get all the colors you need before you start. So I went through quite a few steps before I'm gonna start this. So what I did was I'm gonna start up here in this area, and you can kind of look at your reference and follow along with me if you want. But I noticed this area, this big area right here, it's almost kind of white right here. And then as I look over here, it's kind of whiter in the center. And then up here, if you look at it, you want to think it's pink because there's a little pink area right here. But if you look on this cherry on the edges, it's kind of a light purple on some of the edges, and it's kind of a grayish purple right there. So you want to notice all these little things, even though you may just think it's pinks and reds or whatever. There are some purples in here, and you kind of need to take notice of that. So I kind of want to figure out, first of all, what color this area is. So I know it's kind of mostly gray, and it's got a little tinge, tiny bit of red in it. So these are the pencils that I've kind of looked at and kind of mapped out. My Prismacolor set comes with this pencil right here, and it's a blending pencil. It's just kind of like kind of a milky color tip, and it blends everything when you're done. So I have that. You may not, but you can just use a white or gray for that, and I'll show you how in just a second. So I got myself this sheet of paper. We're gonna find out what color that is. And so I'm going to kind of make a guess that it's kind of purpley. So I might do a little bit of this right here. I think this might be too purple. Then I'm gonna take my white and kind of go over it. So you can see how it changes when I put the white over it. Okay, to me that's too purple. So I'm gonna take my gray. This is my gray. And I'm gonna put a little, I think that purple is too neon. So I'm gonna take this darker purple, which kind of looks like that. I'm gonna kind of go over this gray just really lightly. And that almost kind of looks like the color that I want up in that area. Right up here at the top. There's a little different tone up there. So remember, tones is kind of when you add gray. If you add black, it's a shade. If you add white, it's a tint. But this is kind of like a tone. So I'm kind of happy with that. So now I know that this pencil and my gray are what I'm going to use for that top part. And I'm just going to keep that in mind. And I mean, you can see what happens when you put white over these colors. They look differently. if you put, I'm gonna put a gray over it like we did. It's almost the same, but I knew I wanted it really light, so I just did it really lightly, just like we've learned, and I was kind of happy with that value there. So that's kind of how I figured out that value. So then I went on and I started looking. I started with this dark little area right here because a lot of the cherry is this color. So I got some of my reds because I figured the cherry would be some of these reds. And so, let's see, maybe I was using this red. So I kind of have these reds and I kind of experimented. So I started with this red, this pomegranate red. And I thought, okay, to me, now when I look at that, let me sharpen this. To me, when I look at that, it looks a little too red. And if I look at this area and you look at your reference, it's kind of got more of a bright orange tint. So I thought, what would happen if I took this color, which looks like that by itself, and I kind of added it over to the top of that. And so I was pretty happy with how that turned out for that color. Well, at the very top of this, it's almost kind of got a little bit of a darker value. So I'm gonna take one of my purples and I'm just gonna kind of run it over the top of it up there. And so I kind of know that's what I'm after. So now I kind of know what color this is. So if I look up here, it's kind of got that purpley gray color, the same that was right here. There's a little more of it up here. And I went, and I'm going through my whole cherry and picking out on my scratch sheet of paper what, hopefully you can see that. So I'm going through and picking out all the colors that I think I'm gonna need on my cherry before I even begin. So you're gonna wanna do that, and it's really gonna teach you how to really look at color. And the more you practice it, it'll be easier. So I'm gonna use that same color, which was this one, and I'm gonna do, so I know it's still pretty light, so I'm gonna do it really light. And then I'm gonna take my gray, and I'm gonna kind of go over it. And so I kind of have the color that I want for right up in here. Okay, so now I've kind of got an idea set for this, this, this. So now I'm going to kind of look at what else I need to do. So the next spot, there's like a little pink spot right here. And I'm thinking it's kind of similar to this color, just a little lighter. So I'm gonna try that. So I'm gonna get my pomegranate color, and I'm just gonna see what it looks like a little lighter. So I'm gonna take that, and this time I'm gonna put white over it, see what happens. Well, to me that looks too purple than what this little spot looks. So that came out a little bit too purple. So I'm not gonna use that one. I'm gonna try this one right here. Gonna put my white over it. So I'm using white because they're definitely lighter. So if I just want it to be a lighter value, remember, a tint, then I can just add white. So to me, that looks a little better. And that's probably what I can use for this area right here. So, okay. So now, I kind of got an idea because I know this color right here is pretty much going to be my whole cherry. And so now let's kind of deal with these colors right here. Well, if you look at the reference, it's got, with the exception of the little spots, and I'm not going to do the spots on the cherry, it's going to take forever, so you don't need to. It's almost kind of got purple throughout it. So I'm going to experiment and see how I can get a pinkish purple. So I kind of thinking that might work. Let's try that. So which one was it? It's the pomegranate one. So I'm going to try this. And instead, I'm going to kind of use the gray this time and see what happens. That's a white and a gray, so I'm going to make a tone out of it. I kind of think that works, but yet there's some kind of underlying orange. So I'm just going to experiment and see what happens if I put down some orange. And then a little bit of this. And then some gray. And that did not work, so I'm not going to use that. So I've decided I'm going to use that. That's going to kind of be the inner part of this part of the cherry. And then over here, right in the middle, you can see it's kind of it looks white, but it's really kind of more of a gray area, probably similar to what's up here. And so that's always a good thing as you're doing this, is to make comparisons with other parts of the photograph or the reference, because usually colors are going to kind of repeat themselves throughout the picture because it's the same design, it's got the same color elements, stuff like that. So I'm going to know that the little white area, the whitest spot, is really close to over here. And sometimes what I like to do is I like to get a piece of paper and do a small cutout and cover up everything but the area that I'm looking at, and then I can get a true view of what the color is compared to a white sheet of paper. So if you're ever confused, and I had one around here somewhere, but I kind of wanted to know what this area was, so I cut out just a little small square and I could see there. That's a good idea for here. Some of these areas that you think are white are not. So if you cut out a sheet of paper, you can kind of see that they're not particularly white. So once again, we know that if I take this color and use it really lightly, I can get that little gray area in there. Well, to me, there's still, it actually looks like there's some more pink than what it has. So I'm going to experiment. I'm just going to kind of make it in a ball like it is on the picture. And this time I'm going to put in a little bit of pink. So I know, I think this one comes out as pink, so I'm going to add a little bit of that. Now I'm going to try my white instead of my gray. And that probably would work. It just needs to be probably a little tiny bit lighter. And then probably going to use some of these same colors up here for kind of around it. So these colors kind of around it. Okay, so I'm kind of getting an idea of which way I want to go. So I'm doing a lot of preparation before I start this, so I'll have the right colors. Okay, so now I know that the cherry right in here is, it's still almost the same color as this, but it's darker. So let's recreate this color. So let me find the pomegranate. So let's do it right next to it. Then I'm going to use this. So I'm kind of recreating that. And then I have this dark color that I'm going to kind of put in there. It's kind of a dark, that's what it looks like normally. So I'm going to put it over top of that. And so I kind of feel like, now I'm going to take my blender, kind of blend it. To me, that looks about right. So you have a lot of varying options on, if you want it to be a tint, which is just lighter, you know, you're going to add your white. If you want it to be a tone, it's a little different than the tint, but not a whole lot. And then obviously you would add black if you want a shade. But a little trick I learned in college is to never use black, you know, to always just use stuff that is almost black. And that's why I'm sticking with these darker colors, and they're gonna work as my shade or as my black, because black is so stark. A lot of black is used, you know, for cartoons or stylized stuff, because not a lot of organic stuff is completely black. So that's what I'm gonna do. I think I have a pretty good idea now of the colors that I'm gonna use for my cherry, and then probably the one over here, a lot of them are gonna be really similar because they're almost the same thing. So now I can go ahead and get started, and then I'll show you the process of how I do that.